welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany and welcome to another weekly reading vlog. So this is week 2 of K-Tropathon, and as such I will have some Korean stuff in here, some things for that readathon, but it's not going to be quite as heavy as it was last week where I was focused on reading like RM from BTS for a week. That was a lot more concentrated of a reading vlog, and I do have other things that I'm going to be working on this week. It is Monday, July 10th, I think. So it's been a crazy weekend. Normally I like to start my next reading vlog on Saturday or Sunday because I end them on Friday, but it's a really busy weekend. So we had like a summer bash water day for the kids at our church, which was super fun. We had like this gigantic water slide that had like 2 lanes and had all kinds of really fun water fight stuff. And then Claire had a friend come over afterwards, and then the next day after church, like a bunch of kids came home with us. I had a house full of kids for the afternoon, so I really didn't have any time or quiet space to record. So I did start a couple of books over the weekend, but nothing that I finished, so I can still update you. So books that are in progress from last week, I am still working my way through the Posthumous Memoirs of Cubas. I only have about 100 pages left. I think this is how much I have left, but some of those are notes and stuff, so it ends about there. So only have about 100 pages left of this. I am enjoying it. It was a lot funnier at the beginning, but now that we've gotten to know Cubas a little bit more and what he's like and all that kind of stuff, he's just becoming more unlikable as the story progresses. So it feels less funny, but I don't really know where we're going with this, I guess, in the game of this, which is something that Una and Dee and I were talking about, like what the author is hoping to achieve in this, and I guess we'll have to wait till the end to see. But it's interesting. I'm still enjoying it. There's lots of like very witty things that he's saying and ways he's kind of justifying terrible things that he's doing. He seems to be trying to convince himself that he is a good or decent person, even though he's doing things that are immoral and unwise. But he'll give an example of one very small nice thing he does, and he talks about it like basically opening a window to the stifled room of his conscience, and he's airing out his conscience and lightening the load of his conscience. And so it's like, well, this window over here is still closed. We're not letting in any sunlight or air through there because I can't find a way to justify that. But because I did this nice thing over here, I can air it out and act like I'm not as bad as I am. But there's a lot of like little insightful quotes, and there still are moments of humor, but I found it was definitely more humorous at the beginning. And there are just certain things that are happening that are more serious in nature, although the narrator seems to be relatively flippant about a lot of it. There are things that there's still gravity to some of the situation, so it doesn't feel quite as humorous as it did in the beginning. I have made 0 progress in the Memoirs of Lady Hyegyong. I still haven't finished the introduction. So this is going to be a priority for this week also, because like I said, people I'm reading it with, Christy and Joanna, they're already in the memoirs and I still haven't gotten through the introduction. I felt very demotivated to pick it up because it's so dry. It's so dry. So I need to just kind of skim the introduction and start the memoirs. Over the weekend, I did start Once Upon a K-Prom by Cat Show, which is our group read for Koreadathon, and I needed something light after reading Demian and Almond and Attack on Titan. So I'm like, oh, this is light and fluffy, I'm sure, because, you know, it's kind of like a YA rom-com with K-pop elements thrown in. And about 15% of the way through the book, and I don't really like it so far. But like, romance is so not my genre in books, even like lighter rom-coms, you know, and I'm not even just talking like smutty stuff. I'm just not really into books where the whole plot is centered around a romance, and I don't even particularly enjoy very many romances that are subplots in books a lot of times, especially in YA books. So like, it's fine, but the main character seems very focused on the fact that she's just not like other girls, you know, which is a common YA trope. Her name's Elena, and she is a twin, and her twin is like really popular in school, and she's really awkward, and her parents just love her twin because he's the only son. They had, I think, 3 older daughters, and then they had the twins, and her twin Ethan is the only boy, so he can do no wrong, and she gets criticized all the time. Her parents are really jerks about it. Honestly, she grew up with this young boy named Robbie who moved away when he was 10 or something like that, and he moved to Seoul, and he, after moving there, ended up becoming a part of one of the most popular K-pop boy bands. And so he was best friends with her and promised he'd stay in touch, and he really didn't. So he shows up because he promised her when he moved away that he would take her to prom, and he shows up on her doorstep with a video camera recording him for some sort of like fan footage on like whatever. I don't know if it's supposed to be YouTube or like V Live or something like that, but he shows up and is like, I told you I'd take you to prom, and she's like mad at him because he didn't talk to her all these years, and now it feels like he's using that for some sort of, I don't know, fan thing. So that's kind of where I've left off in the story, which is like 15% of the way in. That's not really spoilery at all. She also is really passionate about this community center in the area that is just doing a lot of good and does a lot of childcare in the evenings for parents of like low income families where they're not able to get a 9-to-5, and it's hard for them to find any sort of childcare because, you know, school's not during that time and all that kind of stuff. So they provide like lower income childcare. So I guess it's fine so far. It's not my cup of tea. Maybe it will improve, but I don't really like anyone. I don't find anyone particularly likable. But anyways, so that's what I'm currently reading are those, but I am starting 2 books today. The first of which is Princess Bari by Hyegyong. From what I understand, this is a girl's journey, like leaving North Korea as a small girl, but I think it kind of starts out feeling like folktale, fairy tale vibes, and then, you know, kind of gets a little darker as we go. But I'm supposed to be buddy reading this with Christy, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. This is one that my friend Dia read, and then she didn't love it enough to keep it, so she sent it on to me so I could read it, which I was really excited about. So thank you, Dia. I am also this week going to be starting Mansfield Park. I'm reading this with a subscriber friend, Alyssa, and I'm looking forward to reading this for Jane Austen July. This will definitely fit the bill for something cozier and more enjoyable for me after some of the books that I have been reading that have been darker or more intellectually intense. I think that Jane Austen will be a nice switch. So I'm planning to read Mansfield Park because it is like the longest Jane Austen novel. I'm planning to kind of read that over time. I'm not going to finish that this week. I would like to finish it by the end of July, so I'm fine taking that a little slower pace, but I would like to finish Once Upon a K-Prom and Princess Bari by the end of the week, and maybe Posthumous Memoirs of Cubas. I can't remember with our schedule of what we have left. I'm either going to finish it like end of this week or beginning of next week. Those are my plans for this week. It's been a bit of a lengthy update, but that's just because I didn't really take any time to talk about Posthumous Memoirs last week because I was really trying to focus much more on my RM reads. So, and also I have started Once Upon a K-Prom, so I actually already had updates for you before we've even begun. We'll pretend it's because I'm an overachiever and not because I didn't have time to film over the weekend. Anyway, that's all for now. I'll see you again soon and let you know how my reading's going. It is time for a wrap up. It's Friday and I have given you 0 updates. I was going to try to give you an update on Wednesday, but not only did my daughter have a friend over all day, but Also, I realized I hadn't finished anything yet, and I felt like I didn't have that much of an update, but I finished a couple of things and made some progress in some other things, so I'll just share that with you. So the books that I have made progress in are these three. The Posthumous Memoirs of Cubas. I was thinking I was going to finish it, but I think it's actually going to be finished either Sunday or Monday. I don't have a lot left. But we're reading 10 chapters a day. So I am currently on chapter 130, and I'm just really enjoying this book. I really like the format in which it's written. It feels very vignette-like, and I really like that a lot. And I like the sarcastic, witty, pithy kind of comments that are happening and the breaking the fourth wall. Cubas is becoming less and less of a likable character for me, but it's very interesting because I've been talking with Dia and Uno about this, and it just kind of feels like, because he talks about being dead, and as a result he doesn't have to try to make himself look good or anything like that, but we feel almost like he's egging us on to judge him, and like, what's his point with that? And so I kind of feel like, at least in some cases, he talks about like airing out his conscience. He did like this one good deed, and so now it doesn't matter all the other terrible things that he's doing, because look at the good thing he did. He can't possibly be a terrible person, kind of a thing. And it's almost like he's holding up a mirror in that sense, like, don't you do that too? You can't really judge me if you do the same thing, if you're doing something that you probably should not be doing, but look at all these other good things that you're doing, and you're trying to make up for that. So I don't really know. I don't know where this is going. I don't have a lot left. Like I said, I have, I think, like 20 chapters left, so 2 days left. Oh, so I will finish it on Sunday. So I'll finish it by the end of the week, and then, start fresh on Monday, but not finishing in time for this reading vlog. I am 75 pages in Princess Bari, and I really like it a lot. I don't know if I mentioned kind of like what this is about. It's essentially kind of like a North Korean defector story, but the little girl is living in North Korea at the time, at the beginning of the book, born into, a wealthy family, the seventh girl. So there's a lot of woe surrounding that. No sons, and she's the seventh girl. And so it feels very fairy tale-esque with lots of folkloric elements towards the beginning, and I don't know if that's going to continue more as she gets older. She's still a child, but they have gone across the river from where they live in North Korea over into China to try to escape just different military people trying to take them and different things like that. So not very far into it, but really enjoying it. Also, just by way of an update, I've made 0 progress in Lady Hyegyong, so there's that. I have also been reading Once Upon a K-Prom, which I have finished, and I have some pretty mixed feelings on it. I'm trying not to be harsh because I am not the target audience for this. I've made my feelings about romance and books probably pretty clear on this channel, that I'm just typically not a very big fan. But the one romance that I have an easier time getting on board with is a friends to lovers situation, because that just feels like they have an established relationship, and also that it's kind of how my husband and I were, that we were friends before we started dating and stuff. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, like, that makes it a little bit more palatable, and this book did have that going for me. They're getting to know one another again. She basically is just like, is this just a publicity stunt? And it takes a while for them to actually start communicating in any sort of way, as is natural when you haven't seen someone in 7 years. And she keeps talking about how frustrated she is that she can't read him like she could when they were 10. He's 17 now. You haven't seen him in 7 years. How would you be able to read him the way you did back then? I also found Elena to be a character I wasn't really rooting for all that much. She's just a very insecure person, and she thinks about herself more than she thinks about other people around her, which becomes incredibly evident in like the last section of the book, where there's something that happens with one of her friends, and her immediate response is to get offended over a life choice that someone makes that is bettering their life. But again, I'm not the target audience, so I just tried to look past that. There are so many times in this book where it's really cheesy in certain points. But then when it does that, it says, this was just like a K-drama, or my life was just like a K-drama, but K-dramas aren't real and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, this book knows exactly what it's doing. And so when I started looking at it like a K-drama instead of looking at it like a book, I started enjoying it more. But, you know, there's this whole thing that's happening where there's some sort of deception between Robbie and Elena. And of course, Elena finds out about it, and it's a whole big thing. And the thing that I hate about it was the way that the book kind of explained it and why she chose to look past it. I think they could have done it if they said, look, you know, here was his options and here's what he chose to do. Was it ideal? Absolutely not. But this wasn't like this personal thing, and they could have explained it that way. And instead, multiple people, when they come to her, and even Robbie himself, when he comes to her for an apology, they say, well, you know, because he was only like 11 or 12 when he was thrown into the K-pop world and started, you know, training and doing all this stuff, he's emotionally stunted. It's not his fault. And he has so much more emotional intelligence for most of this book than Elena does. And I'm like, first of all, that doesn't even make sense. And second of all, that's so stupid to be like, well, you know, they literally say he has the emotional intelligence of an elementary school student because he grew up in this K-pop world where he couldn't express emotions like a normal person. And I was just like, that is the stupidest excuse ever. It'd just be like, well, boys in general, they tend to have, you know, less emotional intelligence than girls, and boys will be boys. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. And I'm like, that's so dumb. I wish I hadn't been there at all. That was like, I don't think I'm nitpicking to say that is just so stupid. It's so stupid. It didn't even need to be there. There could have been apologies and explanations, and if they had left out those sentences, it would have made more sense, and it would have been like less egregious and annoying to me, because I feel like it's just making excuses for people that don't need to be made. Overall, it was fine. Not an earth-shattering book. It was better than I expected it to be, because I'm not a big fan of YA romance, because there's so many tropes in YA romance that I'm just not a big fan of it. I think that Once Upon a K-Prom would be a book that is really, really fun for teenage girls who really like K-pop and K-dramas. And that is who this is geared towards. It is just like a fun, lighthearted, bubblegummy kind of story, and really the issue is me, I think, more than it is the book. I loved the K-pop references. I thought that it was so fun, especially when they're talking about, you know, they did a dance practice video in this, and Elena gets to go see the boys perform at this big Korean musical festival in Chicago. And that was super cool when it talked about their performance, and it talked about them including certain like traditional Korean things, and it's referencing Korean foods and Korean words and things that like I know and I'm starting to become more familiar with the more I'm getting into K-dramas and K-pop. So just really, that element was really fun. I think like the middle chunk of the book I liked the most, because once I got past the beginning and Elena not like other girls and all those kind of tropes, I started enjoying it more when I started seeing it as a K-drama. But like I said, elements of the ending I didn't like, but I did think that there was a lot of it that was super cute. But again, I'm just not the target audience, so I think I'm going to like give it 3 stars because it was pretty fun. But you know, if you like Korean stuff and you are a like high school or college girl, I think you would probably really, really like this book. And I think that it's, you know, just cute and fluffy and fun. Not something I would have ever picked up if we had not chosen it for K-Tropathon, and it fits so many tropes, which is also really fun to kind of pick out some of the tropes that you often see in K-pop and K-drama that are represented very much in this book. And I really did like that, and I felt like the author, again, knew exactly what she was doing in modeling this after a lot of K-drama stuff, and she's basically trying to make a K-drama rom-com. So if that's your jam, don't let any of my negativity dissuade you whatsoever, because like I said, I did have more fun with it than I thought I was going to. We are going to be having a live chat for this book, so if you read it with us for K-Tropathon, we're going to have it on Christy's channel next Saturday, the 29th, I think, the last Saturday of the month at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if you read this with us or you'd like to read it before then, you should totally join us. It'll be fun, and I'm sure we'll talk way more spoilers then. The last book that I did finish, I started and finished this book, and it's a manga volume. That is Spy Family Volume 9. My goal this week was to read things that weren't quite as heavy and dark after reading like RM last week. Once Upon a K-Prom, Spy Family Volume 9 totally fit the bill. Even Cubas, which does deal with some slightly more serious things and it has unlikable characters because of the sarcasm, that is also pretty lighthearted. So Spy Family Volume 9. Volume 8 kind of ended on a cliffhanger, so we get like the second half of that mission at the beginning of this, and I really liked that. And then the whole middle chunk of the book really delves pretty deeply into Becky, and I don't like how obsessed Becky is with Lloyd, who is the adult adoptive parent of Anya and is the spy in this. She is like obsessed with him, and she's using terminology about like seducing him and wanting to have an affair with him even though he's married to Anya's mom. And I'm just like, this is weird and gross with a child. Like, it's getting more and more, like, there were parts of it that were so funny because Anya can read Becky's mind, so she knows what she's thinking, she knows what Yor's thinking, she knows what Lloyd's thinking. And so it's really fun having Anya be the go-between in this and thinking like, oh, if Becky becomes my mom, I could have a world-class chef. And it's like, she's a kindergartner, so she's not gonna become your mom. But it's also just kind of like gross. It's like one thing for someone to have a crush on a celebrity or someone that they think is like cute or whatever, but that she watches these TV shows that she references, Becky does, and it's like Love in Berlin or something like that, something she clearly should not be watching that sounds very soap opera-y, and she's like, I'm gonna try these techniques that work in that. And I'm just like, it's cringy. It's cringy, and there were elements to it that I thought were funny, but overall I just didn't think it was funny. And I've never liked any of the scenes that Becky is in when she's talking about or thinking about Lloyd. It just feels really creepy and weird for an adult to be writing that. And that's just my personal opinion. Becky's in the next mission, which takes place at school, and I love her in that. I love her at school, and I think she's really funny, but I just not a big fan of that particular element. And this so far is the most detailed that it's been. It's not in most of the volumes, but it just makes me a little uncomfortable. So those two are the only books that I finished. I should also mention that I did start Mansfield Park this week. I am only 6 chapters in, so I'm not very far in at all, but I did just get in the audiobook narrated by Juliet Stevenson. So I was listening to a little bit of it yesterday. I love Juliet Stevenson so much. I've listened to her narrate Emma and North and South and Middlemarch and now Mansfield Park. So I'm alternating. I am reading mostly on my Kindle, actually, because you've seen that Jane Austen book. It's huge because it has all 7 of her novels in it. So it's not comfortable to read at bedtime, and Mansfield Park is. But I would be farther along in it, except I was mostly using Once Upon a K-Prom as a bedtime read. But now that that's done, I'm mostly going to be just having a good time with Mansfield Park as my pre-bedtime read. But I do have the audiobook, so I can listen to it while I'm folding laundry or whatever. So that's my update for that and the books that I have finished. I would love to hear from you. What is it that you have been reading lately? Are you enjoying what you're reading? Anyway, that is all for this reading vlog. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me. Now I will see you again next time.